Naples is Italy's third largest municipality after Rome and Milan, with a population of about 1 million. Located in the Gulf of Naples and overshadowed by the Mount Vesuvius, a dormant volcano that occasionally emits streams of lava, this city is one of the most popular tourist destinations in Italy, thanks to its art and a rich history. Due to centuries of foreign domination, Naples provides splendid examples of different architectural styles and cultures, making it a fascinating city to explore. However, in the last 3 decades, Naples has often made the headlines for all the wrong reasons.
The violent earthquake that struck Naples in 1980 caused widespread damage to the city, exacerbating criminality and deeply altering the socio-political landscape. In that time, organized crime broke out in all its violence. An endless series of bloody wars for power between opposing crime organizations began in Naples and its surroundings, leaving thousands dead. From that moment onward, Naples would never be the same.
Italy has 4 major mafia-type organized crime groups that operate in as many different southern regions: Cosa Nostra in Sicily, the 'Ndrangheta in Calabria, the United Sacred Crown in Apulia, and the Camorra around Naples and in the northern provinces of the Campania region. The Camorra is one of the oldest and largest criminal organizations in Italy, dating back to the 18th century. Like every mafia-type association, it uses the power of intimidation to commit crimes. The Camorra flourishes through creating dependence among members and fear among honest citizens. No one talks to the authorities out of terror that the Camorra will harm them or their loved ones. Like a spiderweb, it reaches into every corner of society.
Il crimine organizzato che è direttamente nelle istituzioni.
Organized crime has infiltrated institutions, the public sector. The mafia-type associations gain unjust profits or advantages by illegally acquiring, directly or indirectly, the management or control of economic activities or public contracts and services. Here in Campania, the Camorra controls the drug market and extortion rackets. Often, its members prevent or obstruct the right to vote. They even secure votes for themselves or for others, if needed.
According to crime experts, the Camorra has 5 times as many members as the Sicilian Mafia. It is structured like a network, it has no boss of bosses, which makes it all the more flexible and unpredictable. If the Mafia is a state within the state, the Camorra is a state against the state.
Io normalmente lo chiamo l'antistato.
I generally refer to the Camorra as the anti-state, a parallel state. It's made up of several groups that control different portions of territory and carry out different illegal activities. Compared to the Sicilian Cosa Nostra's pyramid structure, the Camorra has more of a horizontal than a vertical structure. As a result, individual Camorra clans act independently of each other and are more prone to feuding among themselves.
For years, the Camorra has controlled the fruit and vegetable markets across the Campania region and the smuggling of cigarettes. It has also extorted money from businesses for so-called protection that is merely protection from the organized criminals themselves. About 4 decades ago, a new and more profitable business emerged that has become its main money maker.
Negli anni 70 la Camorra subisce una trasformazione.
In the 70s, Naples became Europe's major center for drug trafficking, replacing Marseille. The powerful Sicilian mafia group Cosa Nostra wanted Naples' large port to become Europe's main destination for drug shipments coming from South America. But the Sicilian mafia would soon lose its grip on Naples' drug market.
A natural catastrophe triggered the change. In 1980, a violent earthquake hit Naples and surrounding areas, killing about 3,000 people and leaving 300,000 homeless. Damage was spread over more than 26,000 square kilometers across the Campania region. Soon after the disaster, massive reconstruction funds from the Italian government and several foreign countries started to flow into the region, and the Camorra wanted in on the action. Of the over $40 billion spent on earthquake reconstruction, only a quarter was used to meet people's needs. The remaining 3/4 were split between greedy national and local politicians, ruthless and well-connected businessmen, and the Camorra, that won contracts to rebuild the quake-hit city. Suddenly, Naples' organized crime found itself with a large amount of clean money to invest in illegal activities.
Cutolo rimprovera alla...
Raffaele Cutolo, a charismatic camorrista, created in the late 70s a new, structured and hierarchical organization, in stark contrast to the traditional Camorra clans, which were usually fragmented. Cutolo embarked on a ruthless campaign against the Sicilian Mafia operating in the area, acquiring control of the local drug markets by investing a good portion of the earthquake reconstruction funds in buying drugs and engaging in a bloody war against the old Camorra.
According to the Italian Justice Department, by 1981, the new Camorra had become the strongest clan and one of the most powerful criminal organizations in Italy, providing a living for at least 200,000 people in the poor suburbs of Naples.
La Camorra crea consenso dando lavoro.
That's how the Camorra obtains people's support, by offering them an alternative to a lifetime of unemployment and poorly paid jobs. The Camorra gives to the people what the Italian state has never been able to give: jobs and support. Today, a high-ranking Camorrista, let's say a cocaine pusher, can earn up to €6,000 a month.
Sometimes you can't help it. When you cannot even make €10 a day, you have to check if the Camorra has a job for you. Personally, I have been unemployed for over 2 years.
In the 1990s, Italian authorities began cracking down on the new Camorra. They arrested many Camorristas and shut down various activities and rackets, eventually crippling the organization. The new Camorra was down, but not out, since it had already radically changed the culture. Fear permeated the city due to the Camorra's tendency to kill members on mere suspicion of treachery and the endless series of wars with rival clans. Also in the 90s, a nationwide judicial inquiry was launched examining the political and state institutions. This so-called clean hands scandal resulted in the arrests of several corrupt politicians from Naples and surroundings, who had helped the Camorra to grab some of the earthquake reconstruction funds. This convinced the Camorra that it was time for a more effective action to prevent further problems with the law. The criminal organization wanted to make the laws on the local and national level.
Una metamorfosi anche dei rapporti.
Metamorphosis in the relationship between organized crime groups and politics occurred after the Clean Hands scandal. Camorra started to pick the politicians that would represent its interests at a local and national level and infiltrated the public sector with its men.
Credo che il business della Camorra sia...
As it is, the city councils that award public works contracts. The Camorra once used to have its men dealing with authorities. From the 90s onward, the Camorra is inside the authorities, so it does not have to ask anything to anybody. It simply acts.
Today, although the Camorra in the Campania region has its grip in many areas, it remains extremely fragmented. The Ministry of the Interior estimates that there are over 100 clans and several thousands of active members across the Campania region. In Naples and the immediate surroundings, the Camorra is a sort of gangster-type phenomena with no links to the Sicilian Mafia. It's poorly organized and lacks a power center that regulates the use of violence, coordinates clans' criminal activities, and decides communal criminal strategies. Without this hierarchy, the criminals resort to violence to assert one clan's control and influence over a specific territory. 30 kilometers north, in the city of Caserta, the approach to crime is decidedly different. It is entrepreneurial, and the organization's ties with Sicilian Mafia are still very strong.
La Camorra casertana.
The Camorristas in the city of Caserta have their specific background. Most of them are construction and agricultural entrepreneurs, while in Naples, Camorristas are small retailers. The powerful Casalesi clan rules in Caserta, and the Camorra there as a pyramidal, hierarchical structure like the Sicilian Mafia.
In some suburbs of Naples, the presence of the camorra has hugely contributed to widespread degradation and hopelessness. The outlying district of Scampia in the far north of Naples has become famous as the symbol of one of the most degraded and problematic areas in southern Italy. A large density of people in precarious socioeconomic conditions led to the explosion of organized crime that has found a fertile ground for all sorts of illegal traffics. Money laundering, extortion, robbery, counterfeiting, but above all drug trafficking dominates in the suburb of Scampia.
Drugs trafficking is an industry in Scampia. It is like a supermarket. People come here from other Italian regions to buy heroin and cocaine. It's the only economic activity that generates employment in this area.
There are 20 drug-selling areas in Naples controlled by the successionist crime gang, and they make 10 million euros a month each. Multiply 10 million by 20 and then by 12 and you get 2.4 billion euros a year, which is almost the equivalent of the GDP of the Campania region. And this money is made with drugs trafficking only. The camorra has to provide for the living of hundreds of men, including pushers, watchmen and couriers. And it also has to provide for the families of the camorristas in prison. It's like a welfare state.
The 2009 movie Gomorra, based on a book written by investigative journalist Roberto Saviano, exposed to the world the desperate situation in which many Scampia residents live.
Here it is very dangerous for us and for our kids. There are syringes everywhere and you have to watch where the kids walk.
There is nothing to do here, but for me it's great. I play football with my friends. People who say that it's awful here should die.
The state does not exist here in Naples. We can't afford paying the rent, and we are occupying abandoned apartments illegally.
Huge anonymous apartment complexes were built in Scampia in the 1970s. After the earthquake hit Naples in 1980, many families were left homeless, so they illegally moved into the empty apartments. They are still here, their presence tolerated and ignored by local and national governments. It fell right in line with the state's neglect of the area that has resulted in widespread degradation. The first police station wasn't established here until 1987, but at that point, Scampia's parks had become drug marketplaces. Drug addicts were often seen dragging themselves through the piazzas and streets in search of heroin. The locals called them zombies. The corridors and terraces of the housing complexes were teeming with gangsters. Today, the situation has improved, according to some. There are police patrols at almost every corner. Law enforcement is cracking down on crime and obtaining results. Scampia, however, remains a highly dangerous neighborhood. The local police commissioner permitted us to join him and his men during an inspection, but for our safety, he wanted an officer in uniform with us at all times.
Come here. I always want a policeman close to us. Well, let me briefly explain it to you. The camorra used to control the housing complexes for its drug trades. The selling of the drugs occurred here in the hall. The camorristas built internal gates inside the housing complexes to block us from entering. They locked the gates, leaving their watchmen outside. See this loophole? That's how the pusher passed the drugs to the customers, so that none of us could see his face. We removed the gates, and then they rebuilt them, but we removed them again. Today the situation is finally under control, and my men can conduct inspections when needed.
Over the last 2 years, Italian police have carried out a string of successful operations against the camorra, not only in Scampia, but in other suburbs such as Secondigliano.
Since 2007, we have dismantled all 20 drug-selling hubs in the housing complexes of Scampia. We have arrested dozens of prominent camorra figures, and this is likely to have led to a fracture in the most powerful Scampia clan, called the secessionists. The older bosses have been replaced with 20-year-old ones that aim to expand their activities, triggering new and bloody clan wars.
Last September, two bosses who had opposing factions in Scampia had both one brother murdered. This triggered fears of a continuation of the infamous secessionist drug war, in which more than 60 people were killed in Naples between 2004 and 2005. This war erupted when leader of the secessionist Raffaele Amato split from another clan, the Di Lauros, trying to assert his control over drugs and prostitution rackets in the suburbs of Secondigliano and Scampia. Police and Carabinieri reinforcements flooded into these suburbs after these killings and intensified road patrols and door-to-door inspections, exasperating the locals.
We had enough of the police and their continuous checks. They knock at our door at 4 a.m. They inspect our cars at night and we find them unlocked. They have to respect the honest people who live in Scampia.
We had to hit hard on the camera to prevent it from committing more crimes. Its gates, its watchmen, their presence in the apartment complexes were symbols that meant the camera is watching you. We destroyed these symbols to allow honest people to regain some dignity and confidence.
According to unofficial estimates, the Camorra is responsible for more than 3,000 deaths over the last 3 decades, and in many cases, the innocent were among the victims. Clan wars in outlying districts can last indefinitely, with dreadful consequences for the general population.
Families in Scampia are terrorized. They live in fear that their kids will get hurt. They have become super protective of their children, with hugely negative consequences on their growth, on their confidence.
My kids are traumatized. I want them to leave Naples. If we could, we would all leave.
Alessandra Clemente was only 10 when in 1997 her mother Silvia Ruotolo was killed accidentally in a shootout between Camorra clans. Alberto Vallefuoco was 24 and Dario Scherillo 26 when respectively in 1998 and 2004 they were mistaken for Camorristas and murdered.
A Napoli assoldare un killer costa 200 euro.
In Naples, the cost of recruiting a killer is about 200 euros, which is roughly the price of a dose of cocaine. The Camorra often picks young junkies and simply gives them a gun and a target. Sometimes these improvised killers murder the wrong guy. It's shocking how much young recruits are turning so easily into cold-blooded killers. A few snorts of the local concoction, a mix of cocaine and crystal meth, helps them shake off pre-hit nerves.
My son Alberto was slaughtered by the Camorra 14 years ago. We created this association in 2007 because after the initial hypocritical presence of state representatives and politicians, we have been forgotten by the state. We demand psychological support and justice for our beloved ones.
My brother Dario was killed by mistake in 2004. The general people, the authorities, are getting used to this massacre. Our association has contributed to implement a program to sensitize high school students about this dreadful phenomena.
The school program is raising awareness about the effects caused by the so-called culture of illegality. We work with volunteers from all over Europe so that high school students can compare our social reality with other more functioning EU realities.
Since the mid-1990s, the Camorra's most visible activity has been the handling of garbage disposal in the region of Campania. The results have been disastrous for the environment and for the health of the general people.
For years, newspapers, TV news, articles of almost all world news agencies have been reporting the annual shameful garbage emergency situation which irreparably affects Naples and its provinces. Who should take the blame for this disaster? The Camorra has been able to become central in Naples and surroundings garbage disposal system by controlling the dumping grounds and by infiltrating the garbage collection and hauling system. As all the dumps used in this part of Campania region filled up, the Camorra was able to direct the dumping towards its own illegal grounds, allegedly controlling also the companies contracted to transport the collected garbage to the dumps.
Noi siamo, parlo per il comune di Napoli.
Our municipality is in a dire financial situation. Public employees in garbage collection are often paid with a delay of 50 months. Waste collection vehicles are old. This situation must be tackled soon to avoid a further garbage crisis in this area.
The trash business is estimated to generate a yearly 600 million euros revenue to the Camorra, at the expense of the health of the people who live near the illegal grounds where the garbage is stocked. For years, several municipalities in the Caserta area and in the Naples area have become the biggest illegal landfill sites in Europe, either of toxic and municipal waste. The town of Giuliano is part of Naples metropolitan area. In its close proximity, the Camorra has stocked thousands of tons of toxic and other pollute waste in stinky open-air dumps. A group of brave people from Giuliano has set up a radio station called Wrong Radio, whose goal is to denounce the Camorra wrongdoings.
Behind me there is a dump called Taverna del Re, which is as big as 365 football fields and full of garbage compressed into logs that have been sitting there forever. Would you believe that only 20 meters away from this dump, farming companies cultivate the land and sell their products to the multinationals that produce processed vegetables?
Another huge problem is when garbage is set on fire. The Camorra clans pay some 50 euros per pile to crooks who set fire to rubbish. The crooks wrap up these colossal rubbish heaps with video cassette ribbons, sprinkle them with alcohol and petrol, and set fire to them. Air becomes immediately unbreathable and poisoned with dioxin, while liners' plastic film melts and their stinking content decomposes.
According to the Italian National Health Institute, cancer mortality is reported to be increased by 21% among residents of this area in the last years.
For over 20 years, that area has been polluted by waste of various types without any national or local government check or control. The increase in the number of cancers and chronic degenerative diseases recorded is higher than the average nationwide, although Naples and Caserta are the Italian youngest cities, and the fact that not even a square meter of land has been declared not cultivable is preposterous.
There is no law here. Everything is out of control. I think it's a cultural issue.
An anti-camorra pact aimed at protecting people from organized crime was signed last October by senior government officials. The cornerstone of the 3-year protocol, that was called Secure Naples Pact, is fighting juvenile delinquency and organized crime. The document was signed at the Naples prefecture by the country's Interior Minister Maria Cancellieri, Justice Minister Paola Severino, Naples Mayor Luigi De Magistris, and local and regional authorities.
The protocol includes the implementation of a synergy among national and local authorities, which is already in place, and measures that endorse a simpler and more effective collaboration between magistrates from different cities. More policemen will also be sent to the areas where the crime rate is high.
I may seem to talk like a defeatist, but sending more policemen to Naples won't change the situation by much. In order to seriously fight organized crime, we have to improve people's life conditions in crime-plagued areas. Measures aimed at favoring social and urban development and employment are needed.
Life in Naples has clearly improved in the last few years. The city's safety level has gone up. The garbage issue is not an issue anymore. Naples is hosting international events and the number of tourists has increased. To effectively tackle the organized crime, we have to focus on two aspects: education and employment.
Few are optimistic about Naples' future, yet they are not willing to give up.
This is a magnificent land that once was called the prosperous Campania. I am sure this awful situation is not the legacy we want to leave our children. Unfortunately, many left this region in search of better luck, but this is my land. I belong here, and it's our duty to protect it.
For things to change in Naples and its provinces, progress also needs to be made farther north in Rome. Many suggest that Naples' problems should be addressed here, in the Parliament, introducing a new legislation to speed up the justice proceedings and to more effectively tackle the drug trafficking problem. The state must retake Naples, improving services, creating jobs, and making people know that they are not alone.